York, there are new signs today that the president is starting to sweat special counsel Robert Mueller's obstruction of justice investigation. After the negotiation over a presidential interview, the president's lawyer last night described out loud and on television exactly what he's afraid of if Donald Trump ever sits for an interview. Rudy Giuliani explained exactly how Trump could perjure himself and what the topic might be.
He's going to ask him, did you tell Comey to go easy on Flynn? The president will say, no, I didn't. Hey, Bob, you know it. Why do you want to get him under oath? You think we're fools? You want to get him under oath because you want to trap him into perjury. Well, we're not going to let you do that.
Get him under oath to see if he'll answer questions truthfully. That was Giuliani making clear that the president's lawyers do not want Donald Trump to answer questions about the Mike Flynn investigation, questions we know to be of interest to Mueller based on a list of topics and questions shared by Mueller with Donald Trump's lawyers earlier this year. Instead, though, Giuliani and Trump launched a fresh round of attacks against Mueller. The president today tweeting, quote, "This is an illegally brought rigged witch hunt run by people who are totally corrupt and or conflicted. It was started and paid for by crooked Hillary and the Democrats. Phony dossier, FISA disgrace, and so many lying and dishonest people already fired. 7 angry Dems. Stay tuned." Stay tuned? Stay tuned for what? It was an attack previewed by Giuliani last night.
Can it get any worse? I mean, what do we need to know that this is a totally illegitimate investigation based on a report, a dossier that was paid for by Hillary Clinton and the so far, the biggest collusion so far,
or conspiracy,
completely made up, led to nothing except several fraudulent FISA wires. And now we have Mueller, who doesn't seem to care that he's sitting on top of a totally illegitimate investigation.
But the thing about the dossier that she paid for and the fact that the FBI paid Steele, it was designed to misinform the American people with Russian lies to influence the election.
Yes.
There's a great irony here. If it wasn't,
well, maybe if Mueller and his band of whatever they are, Democrats, right, were fair-minded, maybe they'd investigate. Maybe that's the collusion. Maybe that's the collusion.
Oh, my God. Rudy needs to check his carbon monoxide monitors. The surest sign yet that Team Trump knows it has problems. Look over there. The collusion, the obstruction. They're somewhere over there. Here to explain the latest outbursts and nonsensical lunacy from the president and his lawyer over the Mueller probe, some of our most favorite reporters and guests, Ashley Parker, White House reporter at The Washington Post, Chuck Rosenberg, a former U.S. attorney and senior FBI official, now an MSNBC contributor. At the table, AP White House reporter Jonathan Lemire, MSNBC legal analyst Paul Butler, a former federal prosecutor, and Nick Confessori, political reporter with the New York Times. Ashley Parker, these guys have gone around the bend. They have cracked up, and I think they look like they needed a camping trip or a cruise or something this summer. This is squandered time. This is time they could be focusing on other things. This is time they could be shoring up Republicans in difficult districts for the midterms. This is a time they could try to be switching the script off of the Russia probe and onto something more advantageous to the president and the Republicans. But instead, they are wrapped around the axle and spinning in circles, pointing directly at the president's guilty Achilles heels.
You're right. This is an incredible time suck. This negotiation, especially now with Rudy Giuliani and Mueller's team, has gone back and forth with counteroffers for months. Giuliani himself is not the most reliable narrator. He gives interviews in the media, loves him incorrectly so, because you do get a window into what he is thinking and what the president is thinking, and that's valuable. But he will say one thing to one publication and a contradictory thing to another publication. So that's important to keep in mind when we talk about their strategy and their game plan. It really is oftentimes changing, at least based on Giuliani's own account, minute to minute and hour to hour. And the president also, people have pointed out to me, he kind of takes the tone and tenor of his legal team. And so early on, he had people who were counseling cooperation, and that's what you saw for a while. The team has changed up a couple of times, and now you have Giuliani, who is counseling something a little bit different and is the president's attack dog out front. But final point, in defense of all of these teams, including Giuliani, the president is not a particularly easy client. And that is sort of what is at the core of all of this.
Chuck, the tone and tenor, as Ashley's saying, are wacky, but the substance is fascinating to me. They have now re-upped And the tell in the conversation around Flynn goes to the heart of the obstruction of justice investigation, it would seem. Rudy Giuliani saying that he can't take questions about Flynn and I guess by extension about the request to former FBI Director Comey to see to it to let Flynn go. That was the question that Rudy said he could not answer, the president could not answer. Here's Giuliani answering the question and telling us exactly his understanding of what happened with George Stephanopoulos. Let's watch.
How is he a good witness for the president if he's saying that the president was asking him, directing him, in his words, to let the Michael Flynn investigation go?
He didn't direct him to do that. What he said to him was, can you give him a break?
Comey says he took it as direction.
Well, that's okay. I mean, I've taken it that way. I mean, by that time, he had been fired. And he said a lot of other things, some of which have turned out to be untrue. The reality is, as a prosecutor, I was told that many times. Can you give the man a break? Either by his lawyers, by his relatives, by friends. You take that into consideration, but that doesn't determine that not going forward with it.
So, Chuck, right there, Rudy says his understanding of what Donald Trump said to Jim Comey is, can you give the man a break? That sounds really, really, really close to what former FBI Director Jim Comey said. Can you see to it to let Flynn go?
It does. It sounds really
sounds like
close.
Rudy's corroborating Comey.
Well, it sounds like it, but Mr. Giuliani is not the witness here. The president would be the witness here. And so it makes perfect sense to me, Nicole, that you would want, if you're Bob Mueller, to hear from the president. Look, the president has a couple of options if he gets a subpoena. He can tell the truth, or he can invoke his Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination if the truth would incriminate him. That's it. Those are the two lawful options. And it makes sense to me, too, that Mr. Giuliani would want to try and talk folks out of calling the president. He probably is not a very good witness. The fact that, Mueller can't rely on Giuliani's testimony, that doesn't do him any good. He needs to hear from the president. The other alternative, of course, is that the president could simply stipulate, agree to a set of facts, agree that he fired Jim Comey because, as he told Lester Holt, of the Russia thing. I mean, if the president was willing to do that, I guess that would be a substitute. But Giuliani is not a substitute.
You dropped in something that I don't want to let go unremarked upon. You said you talked about Mueller could subpoena the president. Do you believe now at this point that is Mueller's only option with all the shenanigans and all the BS, frankly, going back and forth between Jay Sekulow and Rudy in the special counsel's office?
Yeah, I mean, look, if the president keeps saying, I have nothing to hide and I want to talk to Bob Mueller. Well, if you want to talk to Bob Mueller, talk to Bob Mueller. And if you have nothing to hide, then hide nothing. But this has been going on and on and on, Nicole, to the point where it seems pretty clear to me that if Mueller wants to hear from the president, it's going to have to be pursuant to a subpoena, under oath, and in a grand jury. Now, of course, there's another question, which is, would he be permitted to do that? Would the Deputy Attorney General, who is overseeing this investigation, permit that? My guess is that he would. I hope they do. The Mueller team, the investigators and the prosecutors are entitled to all the lawful evidence they can acquire.
And Paul Butler, Rod Rosenstein has shown himself and his deputy Ed Callahan have shown themselves to be on the side of the facts here. Yeah. They have showcased, I guess, the indictments when Mueller's had indictments. Rod Rosenstein did that last press conference with some very, very thinly veiled swipes at the circus atmosphere among the president's allies in Congress, the attacks on the probe and whatnot. So I wonder if you agree with Chuck's belief or thesis that Rosenstein would sign off on a subpoena for the president.
I do. What the Deputy Attorney General has been doing is following the rule of law and the guidelines of the Department of Justice. So it is an unsettled issue with regard to the Supreme Court, whether the president could be forced to testify in a criminal case. But if Trump is subpoenaed by the president, if Trump is subpoenaed by Mueller, I think that Rosenstein would enforce that subpoena. Giuliani says that he's concerned about a perjury trap. Well, as Chuck said, the way to get around that is for the client, in this case the president, to tell the truth. What Mueller wants to ask is questions, say, with regard to Flynn. Mr. President, when you told Mueller to go easy on Flynn, when you told Comey to go easy on Comey, did you know that Flynn had lied about his contacts with the Russians? And if he did, that's not a perjury trap. That's a legitimate investigative question. Classic perjury trap is when you ask about something extra that doesn't have anything to do with it, just try to trick the guy into lying. Classic example there, Ken Starr, he's investigating this failed real estate transaction, and he asked President Clinton, did you have sex with Monica Lewinsky? He knows he's going to lie. That's a trap. Asking questions about obstruction of justice and perjury in the Mueller investigation is not a trap.
And they have all the questions. I mean, they know the areas. The flashpoints in the obstruction of justice investigation are known knowns to the Trump legal team. It's the effort to get Jeff Sessions to unrecuse. It's the efforts to get Comey to see to it to let Mike Flynn go.
Yes.
It's the conversations with his White House counsel about firing Bob Mueller. I mean, the flashpoints are known to them. So why is there so much anxiety all of a sudden now around these obstruction of justice questions? I've heard in the last week from people who have either been around this legal effort or witnesses themselves that there are questions in the air, in the ether, about whether or not the president engaged in witness tampering, about whether he carried out or conducted himself in a way that suggested he has or may suborn perjury. There is a lot of anxiety in the president's conduct while in office around this investigation and the witnesses.
No question. And the legal team is very aware of these things and very nervous about these things. And that's why that is being borne out in the goalposts being moved on a near daily basis by Rudy Giuliani and Jay Sekulow, but about what would need to be required to have this interview occur. And their proposals are ones they know the special counsel is not going to agree to. That it is an effort to, in some ways, as someone close to the White House said to me just today, the idea of that we're in a stall tactic now. Yeah. That they want to keep this going.
Does that help Mueller? I mean, he's not the one racing the clock. He's not up for midterms.
They think, though, that if they believe that Mueller will adhere to the 60-day rule or guideline. He doesn't have to, but they could. And they think that come September 1st or so, he would push pause. And therefore, that would sort of, at least temporarily, lift some of this cloud for the Republicans in the midterm election. So they're willing to at least take a chance on that, even though it could mean coming on later. And they like the idea of the president at least publicly suggesting he would want to do this interview. They feel like if he suddenly shut it down and said, I'm not going to do it, that would play politically poorly.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.